Good afternoon. I hereby call this agenda review meeting of the Nacogdoches ISD Board of Trustees to order. Let a record show that a quorum is present and notice of this meeting was legally posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. Board member Reverend Irvin is unable to attend today's meeting. All items on the agenda today are for discussion only. No action will be taken at this meeting. Please join us in turning your cell phones to silent mode. And we will begin today's meeting with a public hearing with Lisa Barbrick presenting the first report. Mrs. Barbrick.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, board members, Interim Superintendent Fraley. On an annual basis, we must present our findings or our ratings on our financial integrity rating system of Texas. And that's where several different factors are taken into consideration and points are given based on how we answer, and then they rate you based on all those put together, and you can get a superior is the highest rating you can get, all the way down to substandard or failed. And I am pleased to announce that we have again received the superior rating. And the primary goal of this report is to achieve quality performance in the management of school districts' financial resources. And it's designed to encourage school districts to do a better job. And this report is required by Texas Administrative Code as well as Texas Education Code. There are 15 key indicators in this report, and this will be broken down into subcategories. To get a superior rating, you must receive a 70 out of between a 70 and 100. We received a score of 98. Prior year, we also received a superior rating. You'll also find on your desk there's a single handout sheet that just shows our historical value for each year. That's just for your information. I thought I'd find it interesting to find out how we'd done in the past. All right. The first 5 questions are critical questions. They are pass or fail. If you fail the entire rating system. The questions 6 to 12 are on your solvency, and questions 13 through 15 are based on your financial competence. So first of all, our critical indicators. Number 1, they want to know that you turned in your report in a timely basis, which is by December 27th. We did. Was there an unmodified opinion? Yes, there was an unmodified opinion. That means that there were no findings. Was it free of instances of material weaknesses and internal controls? Yes, it was free of any instances. And I'm sorry, I failed to state, this is the 17-18 rating on our 16-17 financial year. So you get the rating a year late on 2 years ago. All right. Number 3 is based on our debt. We are current in all our debt payments. 4, did we make timely payments to TRS, TWC, IRS, any other government agencies? Yes, we have made timely payments. And number 5, was the total unrestricted net assets balance greater than 0? Yes, we are. These next 4 questions are on your solvency based on, how well you are able to meet your financial needs. And on all four, we got the perfect score of 10. These 3 questions are based on our these are continuation of solvency. Number 11 is the only question where we did not receive the top score. It was an 8, and it's what is our school district's administrative cost ratio compared to the rest of our expenses, and it is on 8. Our score was 8 out of 10. We are continuing to make efforts to make sure that our expenses are recorded correctly in the right function. So we are, it's a big book, but I read it all the time, and I find new things, finding out, oh, this shouldn't be coded to function 41, which is general administration. One of the things that we found just recently with some of my budget amendments is our communications department. Some of those employees should be coded to 12 rather than 41. So again, we are making efforts to bring this up to a 10.
So that only has to do with the coding is what the issue is?
Yes.
Actually, we've improved from the last time, because you put down 15, 16, it was .11, then it was .12, and now we're
yes.
back down to .11, right?
Yes.
So we've actually improved, but they have a weird thing, instead of having it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so we actually have a 4 out of 5.
Yes.
We have the second highest rating, and we haven't moved, we improved, but we haven't moved enough to be
Right.
at the very top in that.
That's
But
right.
we still improved.
Yes, that is
So,
correct.
good job.
Point.
Thank you. Now, there are things, they are in our control, but then, like our legal fees, no matter how much we spend, that is a general administration. So if you have something big that you're dealing with, then you may have a huge legal fee, and that's going to bring that number up. Financial compliance. This is, did we do what we were supposed to do? One of these is, did our financial report agree with what was turned in numerically to TEA? And they base that, so if you look at that, that is a .000028%. That, pretty much we were spot on. Maybe I would call that rounding in certain places. Again, they ask about instances of material non-compliance of grants. We are in compliance with all of our grants. And then for schools that are in financial trouble, they may have to get an adjustment of repayment for more of one or more years for allocation of their foundation school program. We have not had that. We are not in financial trouble. So here is a breakdown of all our points. And again, you'll see question 11 has 8. That's the only one where we did not get the maximum score. So we've got 98 out of 100, the same score as last year. There's our celebration.
I like that.
This report can be found on our website. Part of this report, this public meeting, we have to put down how much was reimbursed to each of you, your board members, and so that is the breakdown. And this is all related to travel, which you are required to do with your training. If you are a newer member, then you travel more. And again, this is 2 years ago. In this time frame under Ms. Dowdy, this question asked, did they receive any outside compensation during the year? She did not.
Is that pretty common? Is the amounts of board members, is that pretty common?
Yes, it is.
Throughout the state of the kinds of reimbursement they get?
Oh, you know what, I don't know, I have never
I'm just
researched
curious
that.
to know
So
that-
I don't know how the other states, other cities compare, I don't know. I can look that up for you, but.
No, I know that we attend a lot of training, and that's a good thing. We try to attend training when it's
Right.
available here in the district too, so that's a good thing.
No gifts were received by board members, reportable gifts. In your report, I put in a matrix of when you're supposed to put down your gifts. And hopefully you can find that beneficial.
I might ask that we include some information on that in this presentation on Thursday night as well, because I know when people see this, they think that means
Right.
no gifts, and there's actually a threshold there.
There's a
if-
threshold, and that's who the gift is also from.
So if we could provide a little bit more information there so that we're being transparent with those requirements with the public.
Okay. And then we also have to report any business transactions between board members. We have one, and that is Pam Fitch. She is the owner of the Jack Backer's College Bookstore, and we spent $58,866 with Jack Backer's Bookstore.
And
Any
but
questions?
All of that is in compliance and duly noted and made public. Nothing wrong was done.
No, that's, any questions?
Ms. Barbara, I just have one question. Back to the teacher retirement system, what's the percentage that we're paying in per employee now? How much do they pay? Do you have an
Okay,
idea?
it is, okay, there's 6.8,
Okay.
then there's 1.5%, and there is, okay, those are fixed, the 6.8 and 1.5.
Okay.
So 7.2 is fixed. Then you can, there's more that you pay if, based on how much you pay a teacher over the statutory minimum. That is different for every year of service, so you can't really come up with a percentage there.
Okay.
But every one of our teachers falls under that category. So it's quite a bit.
Thank you.
So if they teach summer school, that's included, or is that?
No, that would not be
Okay.
included. No, it's their yearly contract, normal
No,
contract
yearly
that's based on.
contract, okay.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mrs. Barbrick related to the first report? All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. So that will bring us to the consent agenda, and that'll bring us back really up to business office reports with Mrs. Barbrick again.
Excuse me,
No, you're
my
fine.
report is not up yet.
As Madam Fitch, as she's getting that up, I just want to say thank you to Ms. Barbara and her staff, the district, for the work they've done and continue to do with superior rating. I am proud.
Absolutely. Noted there that it was, I think, the 7th year in a row
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we've received a superior rating. That is something to be proud of. And a 98 out of 100, that's mighty good.
That's good.
If there's 2 more points, we can get. Okay. Oh, so we have our donations under 2,500. Primarily, it is non-cash donations. We received from several different campuses and companies. And then I want to note that at the high school, the different clubs had a competition on who could bring in more toys, and their recipient was going to be Carpenter Elementary. And so that's why you see all these different donations for toys. And then one
wonderful.
company, one Nacogdoches JC's gave money towards those toys
That's great.
as well.
Fantastic. I love the idea of the high school students getting involved and helping elementary students. I think that's fabulous.
The next one is donations over 2,500. These were all for athletics from the Nacogdoches Athletic Booster Clubs. The ones involved in these donations were the baseball club, the softball club, the swimming club, and the cross-country club, donating money towards different activities that the students are involved in. Any questions on donations?
So you said over 2,500 or 25,000?
2,500. I
Okay.
may have said 25,000, but
Well,
it's
I'm just,
2,500.
is this, I'm maybe looking at the wrong one, but,
Like
Okay.
page 60.
It's
Okay.
25.
Yeah, page 60.
Page,
Yeah.
okay.
next is the investment report.
Can we didn't go over budget amendments. Can we back up to that one?
Oh, did I skip that?
Yeah, that very first section.
Okay. All right. Page 51.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We have, host athletic playoff games where other teams come in. So we receive money there, and that's A, we are budgeting the revenue and then putting it towards the expense where we paid out. Could be, the 52 is for the security officers, the 36, function 36 is for all the other game workers.
Very good. And do we know how many playoff games we ended up having? Any idea?
Oh, I don't know, but we have them all year.
Yeah, I know we had several there with football, so that was
Yes.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, and they're coming because of our artificial turf and.
The new
And then
scoreboard.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing our new scoreboard as well.
So, when you put this on here this way, I'm still trying to kind of learn. The 8,879 isn't what we brought in. That's just how much you moved to those expenses, right?
No, but that's how much we brought in, and then
Okay.
we also then give it to the expenses. We have to, there's a two-sided entry where you have your revenue and then the
Okay.
expenses that serve it.
If I explain that, since I was AD, we rent our facilities, and that rent, we call it turnkey. It means every expenses we pay. At the very end, if there is a shortcoming, each school pays for it.
Ah, okay.
If there is over, paying all the expenses, then we divide it between the other two schools, give them back. That's what-
Okay, that's what okay, so that's what I was wondering. I was thinking we might like have a profit there or something.
Of course, there are something that rental facilities for the
Okay.
field, but
Okay.
there's no.
B is a request from TJR. They wanted to buy some staff development books for their teachers, so they moved from function 11 to 13. Again, I brought some of this to you last month about proper coding for TEA, and we moved some employees that were better suited to function 13, curriculum and staff development, and they were previously recorded in either function 11 or 41. Every year, I try to do this twice a year, midway, and then at the end, our TRS expenses. Again, like I mentioned to you that, well, this is TRS on behalf, but when we budget, we have an idea of what we're gonna hire, but we have many vacancies as well, so sometimes you hire teachers that are more expensive, some that are less expensive, and, which drives what we pay for TRS on behalf. And so here, I found we needed to add more to our revenue. The revenue always equals the expense. It's not a cash in, cash out type of an issue here. It's just what is required by accounting code, that this is a revenue, but as well as an expense on
So-
paper.
So say you hire 3 new teachers and maybe the positions have been vacant for a year or 6 months or whatever, then that's gonna change that whole amount.
It
And that's
could,
not gonna,
yes.
it's always gonna be changing, it's never gonna be the same, right?
Oh, no, it always changes, and and it's an estimation on where I think it's going to be, what function it is, and so, I'm just trying to true it up. I try to true it up mid-year and then at the end of the year.
Okay.
E, every year we receive a settle up funds from SHARS and this is from 15-16. We're receiving revenue of $129,843. And, I'm putting it into functions 13, 21, 31, and 32, where we had a little bit of an under projection of how much we were going to spend on certain salaries. Our social workers came in a little bit, they had equity adjustments, which were earlier in the year reported to you. The counselors are will be having an equity adjustment.
Can you talk a little bit about that equity?
Typically, we try to look at those before we ever do budget amendments, but sometimes facts are brought to our attention after the fact that their pay is not equitable. For instance, on the counselors, you would pay a counselor more than a teacher with the same years of service.
Right.
We found we have some counselors that are, if they had been paid as a teacher with their years of experience, they would be making more than they are now. And that's what we found.
Okay.
That hasn't been, we're still in the process of going through that, but I know it's gonna happen.
Okay.
So since we have this extra money,
I'm glad to hear that for social workers.
on F, I'm budgeting for those donations we received for athletics, so athletics gets it. And then, G is, the band directors are going to be attending the conference, and they needed those funds in 13 rather than in 36, and so that's a transfer there. Any questions?
When you do those line item adjustments for different categories, do you have to report that to TEA? Is that something that, or you just, that we keep here?
Now, the auditors look at every
Okay.
single one of those. I am down to the investment report. Really, there's no new investments. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not true. I put in 1.8 million into our Texas investment pool. And then that negative 3,665, that was the interest they mailed to us. And so now it's in our account rather than in the investment account. And all CDs remained the same. And then on the rest of the reports, I would just ask if you have any questions on each of those business office reports.
I mean, I'm assuming that you're making a maximum investment to get the maximum return as best that we can with the way things are right now, right?
Right, I mean, they're, within our parameters, I am making the best investments. questions on the other board reports, or do you need time to look at those?
I may just have a small question here. I noticed that, I know why we did it. We pulled the earnest money for the Burke Center property out of, you know,
General fund?
thank you. I don't know what to call this report necessarily, but will that be reimbursed back through bond, or is the plan to keep that there?
It will be reimbursed.
Back through the bond
Since we don't have
funding.
any bond money yet,
Correct.
but.
I had made that assumption, but I just thought I'd clarify and ask the question, so thank you
We'll
for
have a few
clarifying.
more expenses that will come out
Mm-hmm.
before we have bonds, but we'll track each of those and have them reimbursed.
Any other questions about the business office reports? Give you guys plenty of time to review. All right.
And if you have others between now and Thursday, just let us know.
All right. Sounds good. All right, that takes us to the submission of a class size waiver to the TEA. Dr. Hill.
Actually, it's item C, the
Oh, I missed, I apologize. I'm just skipping right over one more of the financial reports there. I apologize. Thank you.
And all this is our annual renewal with the Boys and Girls Club for the use of the pool. That's all that is.
Yes.
Mr. Freddy?
Yes, sir.
Pool rental, when I visited with them, we made a guarantee it would not increase within 10 years.
Okay. How long ago was that?
Was I guess it was 2012,
So we're still within.
2012.
Okay.
2012.
So is it still the same as it was, as you recall?
35,000.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Actually, it used to be 30, they moved it up to 30, we went to bargaining, and they said they're not gonna move it.
All right, well, we'll see. We'll see. Thanks, sir.
Good. I'll compliment, I know the Boys and Girls Club, they work very hard with our swim coaches to make sure those facilities are open and ready for us and meets and such, and they should be complimented for their outstanding service that they give to the district. All right, that will bring us, unless there's any other questions about the pool, that will bring us to Dr. Hill. There you go.
So before you and on page 111, you have an elementary matrix, and if you would like a paper copy, I did bring some with me if you would like one, but it's on page 111 in your board book. So this is for an additional class size waiver for first grade at Reg A, and then a second, fourth grade class at Nettie.
Good, so we're keeping those numbers very tight and close. I mean, 23, that's, hold your breath, but we're holding in there. Let me ask, I've had some questions recently. I know we get this report and it shows us kindergarten up. How is our pre-K classroom numbers?
They are actually at the bottom of
Oh,
this document.
okay.
I apologize, yes, ma'am, it's
No,
kind of
no.
out of order, so after the fifth grade, you'll have your pre-K.
There they are.
You see them?
Thank you for bringing my attention to that. I'd missed it completely because of the, yeah, it was on the bottom.
So for the most part, we're looking good.
Yes.
Across the district, from a
Yes.
number standpoint.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions, board members?
When we get transfers in, then we just look for the lowest class we can put them in.
We do, yes, sir. And that's kind of how this comes about, and it's kind of an ever-flowing, changing, and so
Because
me
we
and
get more
Miss
come in than go
Silva.
out during the school year.
Yes, sir.
Overall.
We do, yes, sir. Like, for
So
example.
this could show up again.
It could. Like, for example, we currently have a kindergarten Reg A waiver in place, but you can see that those numbers have leveled off. So once we have a waiver in place, we don't ever, take it off. We always leave it on our waiver application, just in case. So, yes, sir, Ms. Silva and I work very closely together with the principals and the PEMS registrars on campuses to
So
look
does
at the
that-
best
does-
place as well as
Does that
transportation.
waiver include if you have a child that's out of school, out of the school zone? Is that included in that waiver to allow you to place those kids in
It
whatever?
is. So let me make sure I understand your question. So for example, at Nettie, where we have the predominant bilingual classrooms, then we look, of course, at their home language survey, and we look to see where those students need to go. More often than not, it could be Nettie, and so we'll look at our numbers. But some of those instances could be students who don't live in that home zone. So yes, sir, that is taken into consideration.
And do the principals have kind of, how would I word that? Do they have a lot, do they manage these enrollments by class, or is that done at the district level?
It's really a joint effort, if you will, because we're constantly talking to them.
Right.
And it's either myself or it's Miss Silva.
Okay.
And so the PEMS coordinators on the campuses are very good in getting in touch with her, and then she'll come and visit with me, and then talk to the principal. So it's really a joint effort.
Okay.
And then, of course, we involve transportation if we foresee that we're not going to be able to, just because of room capacity, serve them in their home campus, then where would be the next best option for them from a transportation routing?
All right. And I know we haven't discussed this, and that question comes about because I see it looks like some campuses manage their numbers more aggressively than others, and so that's going to be a kind of a campus issue, as I'm assuming, based on that. And at what point do we, let's use Reggae for example, at what point do we say we need to add a class for looking at next year, for example? Obviously, you don't want too much transition once the kids get settled in their classes, but when you see an opportunity there like at Reggae where you really probably could squeeze another kindergarten class in there to get those numbers down, how does that process work?
This will be my first round here.
Okay.
So I'm envisioning working with Miss Luna,
Okay.
getting some pretty raw numbers, basically, take all the transfers out,
Yes.
get all of the zoned kids, start with those numbers, if you will. Of course, roll them up a grade level and see if, if we have the, like you said, we may need to add a first grade at Reggae for the 1920 school year,
Okay.
based on those numbers. What I don't know in front of me is if you're looking at Reggae kindergarten, how many of those are
Right,
quote-unquote
that's a
transfer
real,
students?
that's a real guess, isn't it, when you start getting into that kindergarten level,
Yes, ma'am.
because you can't roll them forward.
Right,
Right.
right. And then, of course, from our pre-K, we won't know until I have a good idea of our kindergarten until we have kindergarten roundup.
Right.
Which we've slated for, I believe it's either in March or April.
Sure.
For spring 2019.
Well, and of course, from my perspective as a board member, the younger the ages, those pre-K and those kindergartens are of utmost concern to me, and keeping those numbers low, because, by the time they get to first grade, at least they're used to they've got some structure and they're a little bit more used to it.
Absolutely.
But, you put 22 kindergartners in a room, and I hope you have a really experienced teacher.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
How do you deal with situations, for example, if we have a hurricane somewhere, we have an influx of students that come from other areas? Do you have some kind of system set up for that?
That is a great question. I'm not sure that I'm the best person to answer that,
Okay.
simply because
I
I
just-
haven't dealt with
I'm
it.
curious,
but
because I know that when we had that, we had like 800 students that came in. It was a lot of fun.
We find a way to make it work. That's all you
Yeah.
can do, because you really can't
You can't really plan.
plan for it. You look at, before you allow the enrollment, your capacity. Many times, they're just looking for a place. And if we have space, then we'll come as many as we can. We'll work with our principals, and we may even enroll and then make some modifications of where they actually attend, depending upon the needs and put other challenges we may have to accommodate for. But we do a lot of things in response to situations that present themselves that may be somewhat unique. And I would say too, again, I can't Well, we have to really underscore the role that the principals play in this, and also the various grade level leadership teams as well with, when they look at their staff, if they feel they have the staff that can handle a 23rd student, we do that. If the staff maybe cannot, then we look at something different. But the principals have a great role to play in this and whatnot as well.
A response to Mr. Montoya, is there any possibility that they have two shifts of schooling? One till, say, 12 o'clock, then the next group comes after that?
I have had a high school that was burned down that we had to consolidate 2 high schools in before, and you have an AM and an evening
Okay.
shift and whatnot, so to maintain a 2 full-day schedules.
Correct.
We don't need to have that right now.
No, thanks.
But again, in education, you learn how to make a lot out of a little. Folks are very, very resilient, creative, and most importantly, we care about kids.
We are fortunate we're not in California.
Any additional questions on the class size waiver report? All right. Thank you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you.
So let's see, if I'm not going out of order here, that would take us to item 4A, consideration of the selection of architecture for bond projects. Mr. Fraley.
Yeah, this is one, you go into closed session, talk about, since this is,
Okay.
And we won't take action, just to discuss in a little more detail about some things that.
Absolutely. So, we will, I'll tell you what, let's pull that one, until after executive session then. And I'm gonna, I'm gonna use my prerogative to take things a little bit out of order, and bump on down to items 7. And I'm gonna go to item 7B first. Team of 8 training. Wanted to visit with you guys a little bit and get some feedback from you. One of our requirements is every year on an annual basis, we need to do a team building training. They call it Team of 8. And it is required that we do 3 hours. Making sure I'm correct on that one. If my memory is correct, it's a 3-hour training in a kind of a workshop setting. My question, I've visited with Mr. Fraley about some potential folks to come in and conduct that training with us. We have to report this by April, so my objective would be to have it either in February, March, so we can be completed and have it done. Question is, what format would you envision that? Would you like it to be a noon meeting during the day where we do noon to 3 or so? Would you prefer to come in and do a 5 to 8 one evening after work? Do you want to do it on a Saturday? I mean, how do y'all feel?
I'll go with the majority because I'm not working anymore, so I can do
You're
whatever.
pretty flexible, huh?
Either for me.
Okay. Is it,
It doesn't matter to me.
all right.
I'm 5 to 8 for me.
You said
Five
5 to 8 is your preference?
It's easier for me in the evening.
Yeah, do a 5 to 8. Is there a day of the week that works better for? I'm sure, like, we would want to avoid Wednesdays, I'm sure.
Monday's better for me.
Monday's better.
Same.
Same for you.
We have the same
Interesting.
schedule.
How about you guys? How do Mondays work for you guys?
That's good.
All right, all right. Well, all right, well, that's kind of the direction I needed for us to be able to kind of step forward and to begin looking at possible dates. So with that, I'll visit with you later, Holly, and we can continue to look at what our scheduling looks like for that. And I want to have a chance to visit with Reverend Irvin as well. All right. Since we're down at item 7A, let's go ahead and knock out any requests for future agenda items or discussion topics that you guys may have at this time. All right. With that, then we'll pop back up to item 5, and the board will now conduct an executive closed session to discuss items posted on our agenda pursuant to the following provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act and as allowed by Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.129. No voting will take place in closed meeting. And as a reminder, today's session is discussion only. It is now 12:40. Right.
Do you want to introduce this gentleman before we go further?
Technically, I can't because it's not on the agenda. But we can informally go and meet him. suffice.
No.
All right, we'll return to open session at 1:24 PM. And I will entertain a motion on item 8.
We all like to stay here.
The item is to adjourn, so I will accept a motion to adjourn if anybody wants to so move.
Madam President, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Neal. I believe we can do that with just the motion, so we are adjourned. Thank you.
You-